Google's secret server. So, I think everyone has heard these types of stories, like SCP, Constants, etc. Well, today, I am going to tell a story about a real thing, the closed Google server, or as some hackers and programmers call it, Google Trash Deep. I have been in programming and web industry for 5 years now, so I have good experience. My friends and I have our own unofficial, so to speak, Automate and Sell Corporation in honor of Counter-Strike, a childhood game we would play. My two friends and I keep a forum that is pretty popular in the industry, and on one of the threads we've been posting all sorts of stories about supernatural things we've encountered on the internet. One Sunday evening, I was administering our forum. I found that in the above thread, there was a fresh discussion about this mythical Google server. It has been discussed on our forum for a long time. In the discussion, a certain Anon28 stated, "So, today from 2:20 to 3 will be available dip trash. I will be dodging Google's defenses. Those who think that we suffer here bullshit will get proof by morning. For those who want to visit the pit, here is the key." The discussion posts swelled to a whopping 200 posts. It was explosive news. The legendary pit will be open. Oh right, I will tell you the legend itself. Once upon a time, back in the bearded 2000s, among programmers and webmasters, there were questions. Where does Google put all the banned and deleted from the web search content, such as unwanted government documents, narcophagy, gore, banned porn, and eventually, deadly files? Naturally, they just delete it, the typical user would think. But few people know that nothing is created and nothing disappears in this world. The memory cells of the server cannot just take and clear. The information cannot fly in the air. After all, if you just take and delete the content, it will still remain in the system and quite recoverable. This is exactly what server number 211, or Google Trash Deep, was created for. This server is rightfully the capital of the most horrifying content in the entire internet, and not just the usual disgusting stuff you can think of that you would never want to say, but a real psychedelic hardcore, affecting the psyche and health. In general, Google Trash Deep is the biggest Pandora's box in the whole world. This story was told on an American forum by an anonymous person who introduced himself as a former Google employee. He also described the approximate location of the server. We didn't talk much about this thing at all. The boss could just fire you if you talked about the 211 server in front of him. But my friend, Jeremy, from the hosting management department, told me in confidence the approximate location of the host. It could be an abandoned bunker near Wrocław, Poland, or in the south of Belize, in some village, I can't remember. But there is no denying the possibility that the server could be hosted in the ocean. Many considered the story a scare story, but many still dare to search for the server. Anyway, me and 9 other people ventured into the DDoS pit. We kept in touch via Skype. So, it's 2:22 AM and the site is still down, but suddenly, our Anon speaks up. Quickly, type those lines into your browser. That doesn't sound like a normal DDoS. He sent us each some sort of program code. We pasted those codes into the string and waited for it to load. And then, Google. Just a search engine. All this time, I'd been waiting for a search engine. Damn. Although maybe it didn't work the first time. But the screen started blinking faster and faster. And then I saw... What did I say? I would have screen grabbed it, but the button refused. So, it was like a blue screen of death, but with less code and more sentences. At the top it said this: "This site is not for showing, danger. Or you have resolution," and so on. Anyway, I memorized all of this because I copied it all into a Word document. There were tons of links, folders, photos, documents, etc. on that server. Well, I got really scared. What if I turn something on now, and it's not just a screamer, but something that makes my eyes pop out of my orbits, or it will make me jump from the 9th floor? There were 5 categories of buttons on the site, which are like folders. Dead danger, very danger, hard danger, middle danger, easy danger. I decided to click on easy. There were files and descriptions. Mostly they were pictures, but then I came across something strange. This file photo made by an unknown user. It was a picture of a human-fish hybrid, because it couldn't be photoshopped. I was so scared. because there were really such creatures left on the planet. I became very scared and curious. Nevertheless, I did not want to poke around any further. I told the guys I was going to bed. In the morning, I texted that Anon from last night's experience. He said I left for nothing, and that they had pumped a lot of curious content there. They also found out that this server was shut down back in 2005 because it was 8,000 gigabytes. Because if we wanted to go to a newer, more recent server, we would not even have time to try. We would have been cut off right away. True dark nets are not nets at all. Tor and protocols like it are an anonymity and plausible deniability source. Actual dark nets are kept well and truly hidden and cannot be found by any means available to the average channer. Trust me. Just one example. Out of maybe 4 or 5 I have personal experience with, to illustrate what it takes. Do take special note that this involves a great deal of luck. Friend of mine works at a small car insurance broker's office and asked me to fix a problem with his computer, not recognizing the office scanner on the network. This is not related, just how I ended up here. I brought my laptop and noticed a WEP wireless net with a high signal strength. Out of curiosity, I turn on a sniffer to pick out the password while I work on the scanner. Few hours later I am leaving when I remember the sniffer. Got the pass, connected, poked around. So, it's a basic home network, one system online, with internet access. No firewall, apparently no antivirus. For the hell of it, I drop in a back door before I leave. You never know what goodies you can run across. Well, I get home and really start digging through this computer. Just your average home computer. Most interesting stuff for some tax returns. There is a couple of text files that have what appear to be passwords, random characters, and a couple of names. Not much interesting, so I put my worm on it, and I leave it to be for future use maybe. Weeks later, I am arranging some proxies for a few of my bots, when I realize that there are 4 new bots I had not set up myself. What I figured out later is that the owner of the WEP machine, my friend's boss, had taken a file from it on a floppy, which my worm happily infected, which then spread to a few more machines he used. This is where the interesting stuff begins. 2 of those machines had internet access, of course, but they had apparently never been used to actually access the internet. They both ran Windows 98, completely unpatched. They apparently had internet access only because they were physically networked with other machines that were used for internet access. Each of these machines had about 3 terabytes of storage, mostly appeared empty, but was actually packed near full of encrypted bytes. The stuff that was easily viewable included huge amounts of personal information, including SSNs and tax IDs, names, addresses, lists of family and friends, sometimes pets, sometimes a lot of detail, such as vehicle, clothing, height, weight, recent medical issues. Huge amounts of information. Not every listing had all of it. Some were just a name. What they all had were dates. Couldn't make much sense of that. What I could make sense of were the bank accounts. Thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of account numbers, institutions, safety deposit boxes, all over the world. South Africa, Russia, Brazil, everywhere. Nothing but the basic identifying information and another date. No note of what they might be. As I was picking through one of these 2 machines, I noticed a file being written. I figured someone was using the computer at that moment, but the only command events were coming from my worm. Nobody was using a mouse or a keyboard. So then I figured out it was an automated system process. Watched what it was doing for a minute. Then I realized the computer was communicating on another network that was not a protocol that I recognized. Because I knew when it started writing and when it stopped, I was able to transcribe the entire file, which was about 78 megs. I assumed it was one file and not a chunk of something else, and I was right. It was still encrypted, but it turned out to be fairly simple. Since it was one file, I had a few educated guesses about what a file that size was, and my first was right. It was a movie, MPEG format. The title was just a random string. The video itself was an overhead view of 3 men sitting at a table. In the entire 15 minutes of the video, only one spoke. Sounded like gibberish. I figured it was either a code or he was nuts. He said things like, "broken banana stung red boot." He would then pause and say another strange sentence. Kept going on for about 10 minutes. The other 2 just watched him. One was drinking what I assume was coffee. Finally, he leaned back and asked if they would leave his daughter alone. The guy drinking the coffee just shook his head quickly. The talker started crying, really crying, hard. He leaned forward again and said another nonsense sentence, and the video ended. Timestamp was about 20 minutes before the video was uploaded to the machine I got it from. I had a really weird feeling about it, but my best guess at the time was it was some kind of clip from a movie I had not seen, and what I saw was a streaming broadcast. The timestamp on the file just being the time it was being sent. In it, the man that had spoken in the first one was crying like a baby as he did things to what appeared to be the corpse of a young girl, with her throat cut and blood all over the table that the 3 men had been sitting at in the first video. The other 2 men were still in the room, standing on either side of the room, watching, smoking cigarettes. I did not finish watching it, only got about a minute or so in before it sank in what I was seeing. I've seen a lot in my time. This was not a movie. I cleaned my traces from those systems and have not looked back. What I'm still finding hard to believe is that, from the computer I'd originally hacked, these other systems got infected by a floppy. As near as I can tell, the 2 storage computers were on opposite sides of the globe, one in LA, one in Beijing. The WEP computer I'd found was in Dallas, and 2 of the other infected computers were in Winnipeg. As far as I know, my friend's boss has not left the country. His brother-in-law had been visiting at the time though. The deep web is one of the most amazing things on Earth, not because of how joyful it makes people or anything, but because it is a completely uncensored view of people. You can speak your mind, buy what you want, do anything you want when on the deep web. You have complete and total freedom. I had always been fascinated by the deep web, and at the time the events in the story occurred, I was in college. Lots of people at my campus had really been getting into accessing the deep web. It was almost like a trend. With so many people getting on it, it seemed perfectly safe for me to give it a try. Now, I had always heard of the deep web horror stories, stories of hacking, stumbling on disgusting sites, and people even somehow finding your address. These stories were mainly what kept me off the deep web, but with most of the people at my college using it on a normal basis, I decided to give it a go. I asked a friend to come over and help me set it up. When my friend arrived, we opened up my laptop and began to set everything up. He told me that we were using Tor, a program that lets you access the deep web. He also asked me if I was planning on doing anything illegal, to which I replied no. He said that since I wasn't, we didn't need to install Tails, which is apparently a software that makes it more secure if you plan on doing illegal things. A while later, everything was set up. I had my new IP address, and my friend gave me a brief rundown of what to do and what not to do. He made it very clear that when I was using the hidden wiki that I kept it on censored mode so that it would be less likely for me to see something I did not want to see. After about 2 weeks of using the deep web, I felt like a pro. I had accessed many different sites, spoken with some great people, made friends, even bought some weed. I had become cocky and was ready to dig deeper into the dark web. I turned off the censored mode on the hidden wiki and began to browse the links. It took a while, mostly because Tor is a bit slow, and many of the links just led to dead web pages. Eventually, I stumbled onto a site called All the Gore. It was mainly a big chat room with many different topics. I had a fairly strong stomach. I had seen many violent movies and had seen beheadings, killings, etc. through the normal internet. After looking at a few different chat rooms, I noticed how sick this site really was. The people in these chat rooms were actually killers, bragging about some of the things they had done. In the chat room, you could also post pictures. One man by the name of Culture45 had the stage in one of the chat rooms. He was explaining in detail how he had broken into someone's house, kidnapped a little girl, and brutally killed her parents by hiding under their bed and then opening their throats. He then explained how he brought the little girl back to his house, beat her, and cut her up. I did not think he was telling the truth at first, but then he posted pictures. These were the most horrifying pictures I had ever seen. Close-ups of the poor girl being brutally beaten and cut with a knife. Culture kept posting pictures. The new ones were of the girl, tied to a chair, bleeding, crying, throwing up, etc. Then he showed a picture of himself with a drill, drilling into her skull. The most haunting part is that while he was doing it, he was looking at the camera with sheer joy on his face. I had seen enough and typed in the chat room window, "You people are sick. You deserve to die. How can you sleep at night?" Immediately, people began making fun of me, saying that I was just as helpless and ignorant as the little girl in the pictures, and that I should get off the big boy part of the internet. They began saying I was a pussy and calling me an empath when Culture typed something in the chat box. He said, "Really? Where do you live, buddy? I am sure everybody would love to see you on the site." I then made the biggest mistake of my life and typed, "I am calling the police and having this site shut down." Less than a minute later, everything on the site went black and a new chat box appeared in green. In it, someone named Admin1 typed in the box. He said, "Call the cops and you will regret it." I did not type anything in the box and reached for my cell phone. What happened next haunts me to this day. My phone said I had a new message. I opened it and it said, "Call the police and you are dead." There was no number. It didn't even say unknown number. It was just blank. I looked back at my laptop and saw my webcam light turn on. I quickly covered it, but I saw on the screen a picture of me looking at my phone. I got wide-eyed and froze for a moment when the admin typed again, "Put the phone down right now and uncover your webcam." I put my phone down, but kept the webcam covered when he typed again. Okay then, be like that. Right after, he posted my full name, age, and address in the chat box and typed, "It would be a shame if you and your college buddies went missing, wouldn't it?" he said. I then did as he said, and now uncovered my webcam. He then told me to follow his instructions on how to make it impossible for me to reach the site again. I followed each and every one. When I finished, I got a text that said, "Now, don't ever try and come back." Just like before, it had no number. I called the police from my friend's phone, but they were never able to find the site. If you ever go on the deep web, don't ever just mindlessly explore, especially if you don't have any additional software to keep you more secure. I was a stupid college kid, and I just hope that nobody makes the same mistakes I did. I moved to a different home and changed all of my information, but I still get nightmares to this day. The deep web is some scary shit. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Suicide cult in Russia. Hey X, something weird is going on in Russia. Basically, teens are taking their own lives, and it is connected to some sort of cult. It is being spread in social networks, mostly through groups with that kind of direction. It involves some sort of ARG, but it is almost impossible to find now. I will explain later. All of these incidents are very similar. Most of them are committed by jumping off a roof. They leave some weird writings on walls before dying. What they write is something like, "Now we do stuff we promised we would never do as kids. A giant blue whale can't tear through the net. Whether you surrender or not, you will burn." Originally, it was a rhyme, and they were all subscribed to some strange groups and social networks. Everything started in December last year. There was a surprisingly widespread story about a girl taking her own life. Name is Renata Kambalina, also mentioned as Rita Pelenkova. Google it. She wrote goodbye on her page, and not long after, "I don't deserve this life," etc. It was literally just, "Nya, goodbye," and jumped in front of a train. This is weird, not only because it got so viral, but also because she did not look sad or depressed, like a person who would do this kind of thing in any way. It was also filmed, but it was almost impossible to find. She was subscribed to a group, F57 hashtag. Now there are more of those groups, but most of them are probably fake. Their main symbols are F57 and F58. No idea what that means. Maybe a name of the cult, maybe whales. This image is everywhere there. White whale and a flying whale are especially popular. Renata is also used as an example to follow. Number 1642, no idea why. Need to look what happened that year. Time 420. I know how it sounds. but apparently they had some meetings/chats at this time. Silent House. This I can explain. This was originally a joke among Russian net stalkers as the deepest point of the dark web, and is sometimes used as something hidden in dark web or a point of no return. Sometimes, butterflies are also used as an image. This one is obvious. Butterflies are a symbol of rebirth. A couple days ago, a small non-mainstream newspaper posted an investigation about it. I will link it. These people taking their own life, it seems scheduled, and, according to the article, are all appointed and committed 50 days from the start of the game. I have some doubts though, as this article is clearly very emotional and written to make housewives look after their children. But a lot of it is true, as people came to the same conclusions as before. This article is the reason why most groups are deleted/change the direction to something more neutral. Also, this is why infiltrating it will be a bad idea for the next year or so. Some people think this might have something to do with ISIS. I doubt it, as they need recruits, not emos taking their own lives, but I will throw it out. Now for the links. This theme got popular after Renata took her own life, so some links might be fake. I gathered the ones which are most likely to be true. Here is Pastebin. Overall, were there any rises in rates among where you live? Have you seen anything like F57, F58, whale images connected to something cult-like? To those familiar with deep web, is there anything like this cult there? Renata Kambalina, also known online as Rita Palenkova, was a 16-year-old girl from Usurisk, Russia, whose tragic suicide in late 2015 became a focal point for the rise of a disturbing online phenomenon linked to so-called death groups. On November 23, 2015, Renata took her own life by deliberately jumping in front of a train. What made her case stand out was not only the manner of her death, but also the cryptic farewell she left behind and her online connections. Before her death, Renata posted a brief and enigmatic message on her VK social media page, simply saying, "Nya, goodbye," a phrase that quickly became a symbolic signature associated with her and later adopted by online groups. Nya is a Japanese onomatopoeia for a cat's meow, often used online to convey a cute or melancholic tone, but in this context, it took on a darker significance. Renata was reportedly a member of an obscure and secretive VK group called F57, which was one of several death groups circulating on Russian social networks. These groups were characterized by their cryptic symbols, eerie language, and an implicit or explicit encouragement of self-harm and taking your own life among vulnerable teens. The group F57, and later F58, became notorious for this, with some describing them as a form of online cult or a dangerous game, akin to an alternate reality game, ARG, that manipulated young users into taking their own life for a series of challenges or tasks. Though the exact origins and operations of F57 are murky, and many groups surfaced claiming similar names or symbols, F57 is widely regarded as a central node in the spread of this lethal phenomenon. After Renata's death, the group gained viral attention and inspired numerous copycat groups. Some believe these were parts of a coordinated effort, possibly involving unknown malicious actors exploiting the vulnerability of teens. The symbols associated with these groups included whales, particularly white and flying whales, cryptic numbers like 1642, references to Silent House, a term drawn from dark web lore referring to an inescapable or final place, and the time 420 for meetings or chats. Butterflies, symbolizing rebirth, were also common. Regarding the dark web, there is no direct evidence that Renata or the F57 group operated primarily on it, but the mythology around Silent House and the secrecy of the groups borrow heavily from dark web aesthetics and ideas, places known for being hidden, dangerous, and beyond ordinary reach. It is possible that these online groups either drew inspiration from dark web culture or used it as a symbolic backdrop to deepen their mystique and psychological grip on participants. Most of the activity, however, happened openly on mainstream social media platforms like VK. The tragedy of Renata Kambalina's death sparked widespread media coverage and concern among Russian parents, educators, and authorities. The government responded by passing laws criminalizing the creation and promotion of such death groups, and VK began removing related groups and monitoring related content much more aggressively. Renata's death marked a grim turning point, shining a harsh light on how vulnerable youth could be exploited through social media by harmful cult-like groups, a phenomenon that has unfortunately continued in various forms, often under different names and symbols, but following a similar pattern. Creepy deep web stories. I have a few. If y'all like this one, I will post more. Be me 2 years ago. Dicking around with my Polish friend. We decide to head onto the hidden wiki, Anon-chan, etc. On Anon-chan, some dude posts a link in some Cyrillic script with lots of exclamation points. Luckily enough, my buddy reads Russian. Translates it. It's up again, hurry. Fuck it, why not? We click the link. Here is what we saw. 3 dudes in military uniforms, shown only from the neck down, speaking excitedly and super high-pitched / nervously in Russian. Friend reads Russian better than he speaks it, but he catches a few phrases. Basically, these guys are scared and excited. They're getting another one, etc. Eventually, it becomes clear that they are out on the ice in some random-ass lake in Siberia, ice fishing. After a few minutes of nervous chatter, fucking assault rifles start going off. Camera swings around wildly, eventually focusing on a poorly lit hole in the ice. Gurgling and splashing noises coming from it. These dudes, and others, are just straight up pumping bursts down the hole. Eventually, after another few minutes, these dudes use long hooked poles to dig around and then heave something up out from the hole. I shit you not, 20+ foot long fish like snake looking fucker, at least 3.5 feet in diameter. I'd say it was an anaconda, but it was brown and it had really nasty flabby fins that they grabbed and stretched out, full of sea lice and holes and shit. Big black eyes, mouthful of the gnarliest teeth I have ever seen. Huge air sacs on its underside, looked like a lungfish or some shit. Video cuts to a series of photos of the thing, better lit than the video, presumably because they are shot with flash. Mottled brown skin with plenty of blood smeared all over it from the bullets / scraping the sides of the holes they pulled it out of. One of the pictures showed what I'm guessing was the contents of its stomach, and there was all sorts of crazy shit in there. Don't go swimming in Russia. Got a story my wife told me a bit back. We were dating at the time. She called me right after it happened, freaked out. Late at night, I think around 2 to 3 a.m. Wife, then girlfriend, still at her parents' place at this point. Not a great neighborhood, but not bad either. It's a 1-story house with a big window in the front to the right, door with walkway / patio area, and motion light to the left. She is asleep. Someone rings the doorbell, then starts knocking. They go to the door and look through the peephole. Nothing. Motion light had been turned on by movement. Eventually, they ask who is out there. They hear what sounds like a youngish woman's voice, saying she needs to use their phone and to let her in. Understandably, they say no, and tell her to step into the light right in front of the door. They don't reply. Bushes at the front of the house rustle. My wife did not see them, so they must have pressed up against the wall between the front window to the right and the door / walkway to the left. The knocking on the door continues for some time, mixed with harder banging. Family calls the cops, but no one is there when they arrive. Wife calls me after, freaked out, and I what the fuck. I am still not really sure what happened. My guess was some druggie or someone looking for an easy breaking and entering target. It spooks me how they whispered from the dark alley that they needed help and wanted to use the phone though, and that they never saw who was there. Never happened again. They have break-ins in that area every once in a great while too. So I've posted this on here and other websites before, but no one has ever been able to give me an explanation. It's not a long or a spooky story, but it is real, and that is the weird thing about it. Be about 8 years ago. I'm about 13 or 14 years old. On the way to my mate's house. Parents are driving me. While we are driving, a car approaches from the distance. As it gets near us, the power cables from above fall and strike the other people's car. Their car flips. Me and Mom freak out. At this point, the power lines are snaking about on the floor. Dad is confused as to what we are talking about. He doesn't see what just happened. Me and Mom tell him to stop, but he just keeps driving because he cannot see anything. Get to mate's house. On the way back, Mom tells Dad to slow down, as there is going to be emergency services there. They get to the place, and there is nothing there. Power lines are still up, no car flipped, nothing. So, what the fuck happened next? Any legitimate explanation of why me and my mom both saw what happened that day, but Dad didn't? We thought maybe we saw the future or some shit, but since then, the area we drove past has been changed somewhat, as there is now a building on the side of the road and shit.